Woke Christianity is an unmitigated disaster.
Bingo Allison was studying to be a priest, living life as a straight man with a wife and 3 children, when they had an epiphany.
Bingo came out as genderqueer and, in doing so, becoming the UK's first openly non-binary priest.
We confess to the sins of racism, sexism, homophobia, transphobia, ableism, fatphobia, American imperialism, and Christian supremacy.
It now means that same-sex couples can have their ceremonies blessed.
Now, there are infinite cases of this, but the Church of England is a prime example. If you're from somewhere else, though, stick with me, because the same applies whether you're Baptist or Presbyterian or non-denominational or whatever. So the Church of England has been on a liberal slide for a couple of generations. But when the current Archbishop of Canterbury, Justin Welby, came in 2013, people were initially hopeful. He made some good noises. But instead of doing anything positive, he fully embraced wokeness and turned that liberalism up to 11.
These go to 11.
And the ways that this has played out are myriad. Obviously, many of you will know that they recently decided to embrace same-sex marriage. Not only that, but they've got a special ceremony to mark people transitioning their gender. They're even considering using gender-neutral pronouns for God.
God is not a he. I don't suppose God is a she either. I think God is beautifully non-binary.
Are you serious?
So apparently they're desperate to respect everybody's chosen pronouns, except for, you know, the almighties.
Not a great plan.
And they've done this in other areas as well. They got fully into the whole critical race thing. Recently they decided that 30% of their leadership candidates have to come from minority ethnic backgrounds, which is a massive overrepresentation because England is 82% white and the Church of England is 90% white. So their leaders are 3 times more likely to be from a minority background than the average person who attends. Basically, if your skin's of a different colour, you should expect a bishop to burst through your door and make you a vicar any moment.
Nobody expects the Spanish Inquisition.
When it came to COVID, they went way OTT. Never mind just stopping services, they stopped, whatever that word is, they stopped ministers from entering their own churches to pray alone. And Welby's been at the forefront of this. He's spoken up for every woke cause, open borders, environmentalism, he's defended Islam. Recently, when we've had Christians arrested for, silently praying outside abortion clinics, or this Church of England chaplain was referred to the terror watchdog of the UK for saying that people should keep an open mind about LGBT issues, he has remained stunningly, bravely silent. A true champion of the faith, allowing its people to be needlessly persecuted without uttering a word in their defence. Now, in case you were wondering whether or not the Church of England's plan to leave Christianity and embrace intersectional communism has been a resounding success, let me think for a moment. No, of course not. Don't be stupid. They thought it would work, they thought it would get the young people back. It has failed miserably. Sunday attendance in the Church of England had been declining at about 1.5% per year since the 1950s. When Welby came in, there was about 1 million people going every Sunday. He managed to take that and turn that into 600,000 in just a decade. If you wanted to engineer the collapse of your denomination, you would clearly do exactly what he has done.
And it's gone.
And it's not just within the Church of England. The same idea is true across the board. I did a video which YouTube is definitely hiding on the idea that the church in America is not necessarily declining in the way that we think. There is decline happening, but all of that decline in the American church is happening in liberal churches. Conservative churches are actually growing, and the same trend can be picked up anywhere. The Church of England churches which are experiencing growth, which have the majority of young people attending, are conservative on these issues. They are not liberal churches. They are not woke. So if you look at the data at what grows a church and what kills a church, you see one very simple thing. Woke churches fail. Woke churches die. But why is that? Why is that the case? I would say there's a number of reasons, but the number one is this. Wokism is a different religion. And here's the thing about this religion. It is the modern day Phariseeism. People like to throw around the term Pharisees about Christians who believe their Bibles, but that's not the case at all. When it comes to the Pharisees in the Bible, we see that they were the ones who claimed to not have sin. And that's the very same thing with wokeness. They are all about redefining what the Bible says as sin to not be sinful. Similarly, being blind, they claim to see. That's what Jesus says of them. These are people who claim to have deep insights into reality and and into how things can be restored, and yet they're biblically blind. Jesus said the same thing of the Pharisees that we could say of our woke overlords today. They lay heavy weights on people, but do not lift up a finger to help them. It's all about you should meet this standard, you must be perfect, do your own work, don't ask any questions, you're not allowed to interact, you must figure it out and you must be perfect. And like the Pharisees, it's all about the external. It's about supporting the right causes, it's about having the right social media feed, it's about the right kinds of hashtags and activism, and it's nothing about the internal life. It's nothing about loving God or loving neighbour. In fact, what we find is that these people, in the name of their woke ideologies, are completely terrible to the people around them. They are, as Jesus would say,
You are like whited sepulchres, all clean and bare without, but within, full of dead men's bones and all corruption.
Now at this point, like many of us, you may be thinking, well, if that's so obvious, if this is so clearly counter-Christ, or we could use the term anti-Christ, why are so many Christians getting on board with it? Why is this drawing in so many churches and denominations? There's one very simple primary reason. That reason is fear. This ideology is backed by powerful people. And I mean really powerful people, not people with quote-unquote power. People with actual power. This ideology is backed by big government. It's backed by big business. It's backed by big tech. It's backed by the media and by the arts. And for many people, it is much easier to quite literally bow the knee than it is to face the wrath of the woke mob. When it comes to Justin Welby, I don't know, but I know some people who have met him. They seem to believe he's a genuine Christian, so I'll accept that. I do think he's a Christian. I just think he sucks at being an archbishop. And the reason he sucks at it is because he's afraid.
Is gay sex sinful?
You know very well that that's a question that I can't give a straight answer to.
I think he's the kind of person that wherever you put him, he would adapt to that culture. If he was in a conservative culture, he would conform to that. If he's in a woke culture, he will conform to that. And many Christians do the same thing for the same reason. They can't hack the pressure, they can't take the cancellation, they can't hack being demonetized, they can't hack the slander, and so they give in. They hope to go along, to get a few people on board, get a few people through the doors of heaven on the way, which they might actually do, by the way, because God still uses really flawed Christians, but ultimately in the long term it's destined for failure. The church does not grow or expand because it gets a bunch of PR experts into a room to figure out how we can be more down with the kids.
How do you do, fellow kids?
The church grows because it has the message of God himself, and God backs that message with his mighty hand to reach and convert sinners. And if the church wants to grow, it has to, obey God, not abandon him. And in my opinion, the saddest thing about this is that we are failing to seize the opportunity of a lifetime. One of the interesting things about Jesus' ministry is that you had this elite level, these Pharisees, this Sadducees, and then you had the masses. And the masses knew that something was wrong, but they couldn't quite put their finger on it, they couldn't quite describe it, they couldn't quite defend it. But all it took was someone to stand up, to speak the truth, to reveal the hypocrisy, to take on those Pharisaical elites. And the masses came running. And it's insane to me that churches embrace this in the name of missiology, in the name of evangelism. It's the exact opposite. It's when we appease the religious elites of our day, it's when we appease the Pharisees that we miss the masses. And we have to do this if we want to reach the masses. We have to do this if we love the masses. To have compassion on people involves taking on those who would oppress them. And don't get me wrong for a second, this woke ideology is oppressive to its very core. It deforms the body, it devours the soul, it damns the spirit. It is a false gospel that leads only to destruction. People are weary and heavy laden with the endless lists and the required positions in order to be acceptable in our day. The message of Jesus Christ is saying to people like that, come to me and I will give you rest. I will not count up your sins against you. I'm not going to berate you for them constantly. I will cleanse you of them entirely. You will be once and for all forgiven. We have a once-in-a-generation opportunity to show how beautiful that message is. And if we do, it will set this world on fire once again. But in order to do it, we must have the one thing that these woke churches and their leaders lack. We must have courage. what do you reckon? That's pretty good, right? If you enjoyed that video, you can buy a t-shirt, a hoodie or a sweatshirt with that slogan on it, bow to God, not the mob. You can check that out at wearecontramundum.com, along with all of our other apparel. If you buy any of that, it helps support this channel and keep things going. You can also support us directly through Patreon or PayPal. All of that is much appreciated. Links for all of those things are going to be down in the description, and of course like, subscribe, comment, all of the good stuff. And if you enjoyed that video, you should check out the one that I'm going to put down here, because I guarantee it will change your life, possibly for the better. Life change not actually guaranteed.